What is going on, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the Amazon News and Q&A show with myself, Chris Grant, and my carnaptious co-host, Chris Rasick. We are here this week to answer your questions. We've got a few news items, of course, going as or ready for you as well. But like always, and we'll remind you again here in a few minutes, if you have questions about Amazon, retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, please make sure to ask away, and we'll get to them. So, Chris, you've been busy this week. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, it's a busy week for me. Um, it was on. I finally got to do the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
I am
Asked
halfway
me.
through it.
Oh, you listening to that?
Yes,
I
sir.
was terrible. They're just too fast for me. It's like an aging baseball player trying to catch up to a fastball. They move at a different speed. So
They do move at a much faster speed than we're used to. But what I've heard of it so far, it was excellent. You guys should all go check it out. It was I think it's great, personally.
thank
So
you.
I see Saul's in here. What's going on, man? Uh, I right before we hopped on, I had to pay my HOA dues, so I'm a little curmudgeony at the moment, but we've got some good news. Uh, the first thing I wanted to bring up, you had some good news or some interesting headlines as well, but the first one I wanted to bring up is uh, really good news out of the retail sales numbers for March. Retail sales are up 5% in March, beating inflation. 5.3%, as a matter of fact. And this number is tracked by Retail Dive, so they don't track everything. They track some certain core numbers, of course. But what's even better than 5.3% of retail sales being up, e-commerce rose an even more robust 5.6%, according to numbers released on Monday by the U.S. Commerce Department. Now, and Bankrate senior analyst Ted Rossman said that retail sales are not increasing just because prices are going up. He said Americans are actually buying more stuff. He says this is one of the strongest retail sales reports we've seen in the past couple of years. Of course, there are other analysts who are much more cautious, and they said, we need to just hold on for a minute. We need to chill out. We may not see this hold through the rest of the year. But I went back and I looked at January and February, and January did not match inflation, but it was still an increase. February was actually a 6% increase in retail sales, but there was an additional day in the month of February this year, so numbers are a little skewed compared to normal. Uh, but retail sales are looking pretty solid through the first quarter of 2024, which I think is really good news, especially for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always expect that. Whatever the e-commerce should always be a bump above the normal retail numbers, because I have to believe there's more and more people becoming accustomed to shopping that way, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be, just people, older people finally coming around to it. And then of course you have, youngsters who, come into their first waves of disposable income. So I would
Mm-hmm.
expect that number to kind of be insulated and rising for quite a long time, regardless of what the regular retail numbers do.
Yeah, I have been so I have been very slow to adopt a debit card for my own kids, but that has happened over the past 2 weeks. Um, and it's been fascinating to see where they spend the money that's just free money. It's been interesting. Nobody has gone on Amazon yet because I think they've realized that Dad's credit card is the one that's on Amazon. And I'll see things show up every now and again. I'm like, who ordered this? But I've seen Robux. I've seen a lot of school vending machines. and maybe a lunch off campus that I didn't know about before it happened. Uh, so
Speaking
before
of,
we,
you know
yeah,
what? Speaking of lunch, that reminded me. I couldn't find an article to send it to you. I sent you a batch of stuff as far as news, but there was one piece of news that makes me personally very, very sad.
hmm
Because in the days of my higher metabolism, I was a huge fan of all you can eat shrimp. And did you catch the headline that Red Lobster
I
is considering Chapter 11?
I did. I saw that today.
Yeah.
I was talking about that on the way home from school this afternoon with one of the boys.
You could say they're in hot water.
Oh, next
Yes.
week
Yes.
there will be a drum. There will be a drum sound that we'll have for those. uh,
I purposely left that out. I wanted your live reaction out of that.
I
So
appreciate that. A little live reaction from the audience. Luke is,
yeah, eyes rolling across the audience.
yeah. Before we move on to the next one, Shannon is curious. Why have you told us why you've got the maximum number of tactical arbitrage scans running?
Because what I'm all about. I mean, I am rejoicing. This is the honeymoon phase of the scan minutes rolled back, and if you're still a subscriber to TA or you sign up again, why wouldn't you? You
Mm-hmm.
know, like that- I really, I wasn't shy about sharing how much I disapproved of the change when they moved to scan minutes. Um, so I'm taking full advantage of just being able to run my scans constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like having to kind of parse out scans and kind of wait and kind of meter and make sure I had enough scan minutes to get me through the month, and that was miserable. So I'm very, very happy with the change, and I'm taking full advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and
There's
if
all the
if if the question is how many, I do have four. I didn't go
did not go
pro.
pro.
No, because I know Yoda on the Tactical Arbitrage Facebook page. He was curious. He wanted to know why people hadn't, and I didn't respond. But the way I look at it is, I've already gotten extra.
Mm-hmm.
It's I got so used to having to ration out my scan minutes. So I've already received a huge benefit from just rolling back the scan minutes. So
Right.
it didn't seem logical to then bump up to, especially because I only have the online arbitrage, I think on the web page it's $79 a month or something. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And maybe eventually, your threshold will go up, and maybe you do later on down the road.
sure.
Um, so, yeah. So for anybody who missed the news, tactical arbitrage no longer has that ceiling every month that you have to pay for extra minutes. That is something that's something that is, in my opinion, it's powerful. You can go through a ton of scans, especially if you know how to keep them running all the time, which is not too difficult. Um, Sorry, and remember, guys, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them. But we got a few more pieces of news. Uh, this one, this one's a little rough. I started off with the good news. This one is not so great. Um, I was trying to think of a lighthearted way to bring it up, and there's no good way, at least no tasteful way to do it, in front of an audience. But Andy Jassy is just straight up gaslighting us. There's no other way to say it. Um, he came out and said he did an interview with CNBC, and he came out and said that Amazon has a great relationship with Amazon sellers. I think a lot of sellers had something different to say. I know that one of my favorite follows on Twitter, John Durkitz, was quoted as saying, "Yeah, that's not true at all." But he talked about how Amazon sellers are making more money than ever, and so on. And he left out the part. He didn't say the real part out loud. He didn't talk about how they're kind of squeezing the margins a bit, and things like that. And so I don't know. It's he did say it's much easier to start a storefront than it is to go out and build your own website or anything like that. Of course, never said the word Shopify, who makes that super easy. Now, he is correct. It is easier because we don't have to drive traffic. And that's the one thing I will say that I think a lot of Amazon sellers maybe overlook. Driving traffic to anything is very, very hard. Whether it's a direct-to-consumer website, whether it's a blog. I mean, I can tell you my own blog for years. It was like writing, to nobody. It was an audience of one. It was myself. And then you start getting a little bit of juice from Google and things like that. But that really leaves out all of the ways that Amazon has tightened the belt on sellers through new fees, inbound placement, all these things. And I'm not sure how he said that with a straight face. And I'm wondering, is he just insulated from what people say on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and everywhere else? Or what do you think?
You know what he's guilty of is bad timing. But I think that's the extent of it. And this isn't going to be a popular opinion. Did you happen to watch the interview or read the transcript?
I have not. I started to read the transcript, and then I was like, holy cow, this is long. And I tried to find the video, and it seemed to be hidden behind a paywall. Right. And then my laziness took over.
So I read the transcript. And, so I went and found the section because I wanted to get all the context around it. And then I ended up reading through the whole thing. This isn't a story. Okay. This is just, it's an unfortunate phrase with very bad timing, because everyone's upset with the new fees and all the changes, and no one's happy with Amazon. But we've covered that ad nauseum at this point. Yeah. Right. And, while it's unfortunate, fees are going to go up, right? And a little tough love at this point is probably necessary. Fees are always going to go up. Just got to get used to it, get over it. Like you said, there's the positivity of this marketplace. Look at what you sell in a year on Amazon, and then think of all the other places that you could sell that kind of volume. There aren't many, and for a lot of sellers, there aren't any. You'd have to, maybe a Joey Wheeler type could kind of scrabble together eBay and Walmart and reach an equivalent number. But it's the volume, it's the people, the eyeballs on the website that we get to sell on, right?
Yeah. So there's nowhere else getting 1 billion page views a month.
No, nowhere. So and if you actually read the transcript, this was a CEO simply making an appearance on Squawk Box. Right. Every question is just it was superficial comments about a ton of different topics. Right. And the Squawk Box, the host, I can't remember his name right now, but he even said that he couldn't get through everything that he wanted to cover. Right. So they were rapid firing topic after topic after topic. It's just the CEO of an enormous company making an appearance on television. Right. And, my one argument that I will have to anybody that, wants to call BS, think about what you wish Andy Jassy would have said, right? Like when he was asked about third-party sellers, think about what you wanted him to say. And then as a second part of this thought experiment, think about if you've ever heard a CEO say that. Chances are, and again, it's the emotion of all this stuff. It's right. Increased fees suck, but it's, he's CEO of $1 trillion company. He's not going to sit there and go, yeah, you know what? We had to increase some fees and it really pissed a bunch of people off. I'd like to personally apologize to every third-party seller out there. But this is going to help the bottom line. It's going to increase shipping speeds and delivery speeds. And ultimately, the goal is to get even more eyeballs on Amazon.com and retain our, I won't say monopoly, but monopoly.
Right. I think your take is spot on. I wanted to take the contrarian viewpoint. I shouldn't say that. I wanted to try and take the side of every seller who's pissed off, but it's difficult to do. It really is. And I heard something interesting, and this is something old that Jeff Bezos said, and he said that their job was to sell things, but he knew that to really make inroads to the consumer, that they needed to make Amazon an everyday thing. And so he tasked his team with coming up with what do consumers do every single day? Because listen, I love Publix, okay? A pub sub is amazing. You go grab a pub sub, you go to the beach, Publix has everything. They've got decent prices, but high quality stuff. Publix is not something that I think about every single day. But whenever I sit down at night and I want to watch a TV show with my wife, Amazon is what comes up. And so Amazon has made themselves a part of every single day of our lives, whether we're shopping or not. And they've done so well at it that when we thought that the number of Prime customers couldn't go up, they had a 5% bump last year. 180 million Prime customers on Amazon, which means 5% more customers that spend on average $1,300 a year rather than the $450 or $600 that a non-Prime customer spends on Amazon.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. It would go back to the story of, one of the, let's see, it's right over there. One of the Amazon books on my shelf. When my mom saw it, she goes, "Oh, really? Do you really need to read about him too?" It's like a Jeff Bezos book. And I told her, I said, "Mom, it's easy to get complacent. The company that he has built and the company that Amazon is, it's really incredible. And we're kind of jaded now because we're plugged into the matrix but it's really impressive what it is, and if you think about your relationship with Amazon, so it's going to get loud. My wife's coming home. Amazon used to be the place. Remember all the retail stores that, the hack was to check Amazon while you're in the aisle, see if you could get it cheaper. And right. And you still see, CEOs of some brick and mortar places, complaining about that. But, so it used to be the hack. And then, they added the Prime Video and everything that comes with it. I mean, it's just, you just don't even think of not paying for Prime, the vast majority of people, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We've got the CEO. Speaking of CEOs, we've got the CEO of Tactical Arbitrage of Three Colts dropping in, letting us know that you are number 4 on the Tactical Arbitrage leaderboard. Yeah.
TA swag.
Right?
I'm in for that TA swag. I didn't know I was in the running.
Yeah. That's
awesome.
Killer.
Thanks,
all right,
Yoda.
let's answer a couple of questions, and then we've got a few other pieces of news items for you guys. And of course, if you guys have questions, make sure to drop them in the chat. We'll make sure to answer them. Mary, always learning new words. This is something that I get made fun of, but I enjoy exercising my lexicon. It is something that I do every single day. I tell my kids, they're like, "I'm so bored. I'm so bored." And I'm like, don't even talk to me about bored. When I was a kid, if I got bored, we had one of those old, we didn't have the money for a Merriam-Webster dictionary. So whoever the second, best dictionary was, I think that may have been it. We had the second runner-up, dictionary in the house, and I would pull that.
It was an Urban Dictionary, right?
What's that?
It wasn't Urban Dictionary, as long as
it was not Urban Dictionary. That did not exist, unfortunately. But I would pull out the dictionary and I would read it, and I still like doing that to this day. Uh, my Google searches are very tame. It's just a bunch of etymologies of different words. Gina, can you please tell us how to update Keepa and get the new icons to show for multiples and IP alert? So, if you have IP alert installed on your computer, you need to make sure that the brand column and the ASIN column are visible in the product viewer on Keepa, and then you might need to refresh the page a couple of times. Just let it click. It will get there eventually. If that doesn't work, make sure that IP alert is up to date, which you can do inside your extension manager. If that still doesn't work, shoot me an email and I'll see what I can do to help you. Let's see here. All right, so what do you guys think about the new coin battery thing that Amazon released on the news today? Something about any products with coin-based batteries now need to upload documents, and also the documents needed for dietary supplements. So, all right, I'm going to talk about dietary supplements first. The way that I read the dietary supplements was that's really going to be for brand owners more than it's going to be for arbitrage sellers. If you're selling, Sundown or Nature Made or something like that, probably not going to be a big deal. But if you are creating a private label supplement brand and you're putting out the next whatever pill, you're gonna have a much higher cost. There's gonna be a larger barrier to entry, and probably for the good of the consumer. So that's all there. I have not read the news on Amazon on Seller Central today, so I have not seen the coin-based battery thing. However, here's my initial reaction. This doesn't surprise me. I would imagine this also may be. So you got to remember, Amazon thinks about brands first and arbitrage sellers second. So my guess is this is going to be more for brands than it is anybody else. You may have to get, the paperwork for the brands like we've had to do with toys in the past and CPC documents. But coin-based or the coin-sized batteries, the little, what I don't know what they are made out of, but those little batteries that kids swallow. They kill kids. They don't just usually make kids sick. So I'm okay with that. And maybe these are coming from, more claims and things from customers. I have no idea. But if it's to make the consumer safer and hopefully cause less headaches for sellers, I'm okay with it personally.
Yeah. Well, there are even certain insurance companies, when you go to get a general liability policy, that specifically ask if you sell dietary supplements.
Yep.
So clearly there's liability risk there, and so much so that certain insurance companies aren't interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Deductive reason. So looks like you sent in an ASIN. The brand decided to enroll in the transparency program right after it checked in. Immediately got hit with an inauthentic claim. Tried everything with no success. You might be out of luck on that one. I have not seen it. I've seen brands enroll in the transparency program and people have the opportunity to provide transparency codes, pictures of transparency codes. Never seen anybody get hit with an inauthentic claim right after they enrolled. You could try to argue the fact that you purchased before the brand was enrolled in the transparency program, but you might be arguing to a brick wall. That's really that's the best thing I could give you there. Jerry, am I aware that Keepa Academy is not working in school? I'm not, but I'll take a look at it.
That's the leaderboard that I want to climb. I love being on TA's leaderboard, but I need to get on the FBA Today school leaderboard. Right. I need to climb that a little higher.
Muhammad Ali. Now, I doubt this is the Muhammad Ali that we're thinking of, but I'm glad to see this name pop up here. Do you guys keep multiple Amazon accounts as a backup in order to maintain the risk overall? I do have multiple Amazon seller accounts. I have it for different reasons than what most people have them for, but I do have a couple. It is, for me, it's not necessarily to spread out the risk, because I know we think of Amazon as a retail company. Amazon is a technology company that moonlights as a retailer. They know that you have more than one Amazon account. You know, you can use a VPN. You can make sure that there are different bank addresses, different mailing addresses, different LLCs, all of that stuff. Amazon probably knows that you are or have more than one account. So I don't know how much you can really insulate yourself from getting one account suspended and you not having another account suspended, no matter how many firewalls you have in place. But I am not against having more than one Amazon account for multiple reasons. Christy's curious. I have a question. My account was set up years ago and inactive for years. I recently started selling again. I don't have an option to get paid more often than every 2 weeks. Is there any way to change this? I don't have a lot of capital to work with, and I really need to access my money sooner, if possible. I don't think so. There are going to be some options for you, okay? The options that I would suggest you not choose are going to be factoring companies, okay? They will not say that I'm a factoring company. They'll say, hey, we make sure that you get your money from Amazon as soon as it's paid out, even if it's held up. Well, what they're doing is they're factoring the money, and it's very, very difficult to figure out what the actual rate you're paying is, and it's along the lines of usury, in my opinion. Now, I won't say any names or anything like that, but there are more than one out there, and I would probably stay away from them. I would look for alternative ways to access capital if you're sure that you know what you're doing. Credit cards are a good way. That way you can float things. Yeah, the American Express Plum offers you a 60-day payback period. I believe there's another credit card. Does Capital One have one with a 60-day payback period?
Yeah, they might have. Yeah, their charge card might have a longer payback period.
Yeah, but look for a some sort of credit with longer payback periods. I would, before using a factoring company, I would take out things like a PayPal loan, although those interest rates are going to be pretty high. If you have the ability, you could get a loan through the SBA, that kind of stuff. Make sure not to take out a home equity line of credit or anything like that. I would never want you to risk your house if things went upside down. But that's probably going to be the best you could do. You could ask Amazon if there's a different payment option, but even if they offered you daily payouts, for some miracle, I would imagine that they would probably put a hold on the payments anyway, and you'd have to wait 7 days after it's delivered to get that money released to you.
And speaking of SBA loans, you said if you're able to, more people are able to than they realize. I got an SBA business line of credit through my local bank, and all they wanted was a year of sales data.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
then
not too bad.
and then there's normal underwriting. They'll pull credit and look at all that stuff. But if you got a clean credit history and a year's worth of sales, it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Shannon is curious, how are people branding listings that are not their brand? If I get brand registry, can I also list other brands as my own? Very frustrated. So I'm guessing you're probably looking at branded bundles. There are some sellers who've been around for a very long time with branded bundles. before it was being talked about in the Amazon community, that have done very, very well. I can't remember the name of it. It's something spoon, by the spoonful or by the cupful or something like that. Big branded bundle seller. Yeah, they've gotten brand registry, and typically they're adding something to the listing that is of value, and a value is in quotation marks. I've seen things like tea bundles with honey sticks, and I've seen things like stickers with toys. The honey sticks with tea bundles totally makes sense. I can see how that's a valued item. Stickers with toys, or I've seen collectible dice with board games that do not use dice. That one I would not consider a value add. Now, some people will tell you that this is a very gray area on Amazon. I am not 100% sure, other than the fact that I see so many people doing it that right now it's probably still a blue ocean, but I would imagine that over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get in. I actually had a conversation with someone earlier today, and I showed them how this could be a blue ocean for them in a niche that other people are not looking at, in my opinion. The keywords were all there on Amazon. They were being auto-completed for the exact thing that we talked about. And he had the ability to do something very similar. And I was like, there you go. I said, there is probably several $1,000s a month of profit because no one has done anything like this. So my opinion, I would go out and I would read all of the terms of service about bundles, and then just make sure that if you're going to do it very, very well and do it properly. Hey, Miles stopped by.
There he is.
Miles, appreciate you stopping by, man. Perry says, thanks for talking about perspective. Kim and I were talking about that today. Sellers need a head check. Perry does not pull punches, and I appreciate that. And this is coming from someone who did sell on their own website. We learned about that on the podcast we did with them that got released this past Saturday, which is one of our fastest growing podcast episodes. I would highly suggest you go out and listen to it if you have not. Perry and Kim did $13.5 million in sales in retail arbitrage in 2023. They've got it down. And they're not, they're not really complaining. They don't like it, but they're not complaining about the changes that are coming. They're just pivoting.
Yeah.
That episode, it is our fastest. It got to 2,000 listens on YouTube, 700 listens on Spotify, Apple, etc. in just under 3 days. So big episode there.
Yeah, that's and people who haven't listened to it, if you do end up checking it out, one of the things that I wanted to ask him, but I couldn't get to it, which 2 hours and I still had stuff that I didn't even get to, tells you a little something. But think about all of the changes that they experienced, and of course, Chris, you're in the same boat. Like people are getting so upset. Like, how can you act like stuff like this hasn't happened before? And then look at the volume. Look at 13.5 million. And think about what a small little, it's only going to be 6 cents per unit. Think about what that is times 13 million in a year. And they're still, they love where their business was, and they shared everything. They didn't shy away from any question, and they're still plugging along. And there's a lot you can take from that. If you kind of get caught up in, the suckiness of the current situation.
Yeah. Something else to think about is a lot of people are amazed. We were, when I knew it was 8 figures, and then they're like, oh, well, it's 13.5 million. That was something, I don't know, that made my jaw drop. Okay.
Right.
because it just seems so much bigger than 10 million. But
Yeah.
I then was thinking, you know, Amazon Amazon's over $600 billion a year in sales. 13.5 million is less than like 0.5% of Amazon. There's so much room on Amazon still, in my opinion. So it's amazing. Um, let's see here. A couple more things. I want to answer your guys. Yeah, and of course, you guys have questions. Um, feel free to shout them out. We'll get you guys. This one, I did not ask for this to happen, but I do happen to know this lady. But we are fairly adorable and somewhat smart. All right. Sorry, guys. Hey, guys, what's the site that identifies sellers in your area? You mentioned in an earlier podcast was driving and didn't catch the name. That is going to be Smart Scout. Smartscout.com will do that. If you go over to my website, cleartheshelf.com, there's like a free trial that you can hop on there. Capital One does have a 60-day payback period. So it's either going to be 60 days payback or 1.5% cash back. Can cross-border scans be done in tactical arbitrage? Yes, they can. And Shannon says, not branded bundles, but branding on multi-packs. I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. It's probably something I can chat with you in private about because I happen to have a little bit of insider information. But those are they look like multi-packs. They are considered branded bundles. And we've got a ton in here today. When's the next OA challenge? The next live OA challenge probably will not be until August or September. I don't think I can let the cat out of the bag yet, but we do have something coming next month in May that I think people are going to be really excited about as well. It's going to be top notch quality in my opinion.
And it does end in challenge though, right?
It does end in challenge. Yeah, I can say that.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Everyday Unicorns podcast with Perry and Kim was worth the 2-hour watch. I'll be rewatching like once a month for the tips. That's all. I'm going to be honest. So I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and I listen to a lot of them. My family thinks I'm weird because I don't listen to music anymore. Every now and again, I'll throw on maybe a little 90s alternative, maybe a little 90s hip hop. But other than that, my son was like, "You hear the new Justin Bieber?" And I laughed at him. I was like, "No, at least not on purpose."
I didn't hear the old Justin Bieber.
Right? But I listen to so many podcasts. I'm really trying to be. I want us to be the best podcast in the space, and we're probably going to do a lot more of these long form podcasts because we can just get so in the weeds with folks and learn a whole lot more. And while we're on the topic, if Andy Jassy, if you're listening, or if any of your lackeys are listening, there is an open. We'll clear the calendar if you want to come on and talk with a couple of Amazon sellers and address the audience.
And Andy, if you're just tuning in, watch the replay. I totally had your back in the first part of the episode. So
that's right.
If they're little brownie points, send them our way.
Lex, afternoon, gentlemen. Appreciate these weekly Q&As. We're happy to do them. Last year, Amazon gated some brands. Folks had to reapply. This year again with Adidas. Is this something they do yearly? There's always something. I don't know that they're choosing particular brands every year to regate, but there's always something. Something gets regated. A lot of times, in my opinion, this is probably some bot gone wild because Adidas was branded as Adidas in Seller Central. And now when people are going to get ungated again, it's branded $Adidas. I have no idea what may have caused that. Who knows?
But the popular opinion is the dollar sign means like the parent brand, right?
I
I've heard
think
that
so.
a
I've
lot.
heard that, but I've
Can't
never.
confirm it anywhere with any
Yeah,
documentation, but
yeah.
and here, and I honestly don't know the answer to this question, but are we sure who they is? How do we know it's Amazon and not Adidas wanting, maybe the tree kind of reorganized?
That is possible. I have seen that. I've seen that seemingly happen in the past. Again, something we can't confirm, but I have seen in the past where things have been gated, and then like I would get ungated, maybe automatically, and 4 or 5 other sellers could never get ungated again. And was that, do they want sellers with certain account health metrics? Do they want sellers with certain amount of time or a certain sales number to be ungated? That kind of thing would not surprise me. And that was one of the things that was always kind of thought of how it works to get ungated for things like Nike. Well, you've got to have some time under your belt, or you got to sell so much, and then things start opening up for you. That seems plausible.
Mm-hmm. And if there are different degrees of, permission to sell, it's logical that companies would change their mind over time and want a different, like, no, I want this, I don't want this approved, because there's, certain ones, it just, once you get out of the sandbox, you're automatically approved. But then, it seems like there are other brands that no matter what you do, they're going to want an invoice,
Right.
So why wouldn't a brand change their mind over time?
Yeah. For Nike, let's talk Nike, for example. Nike is one of those brands that I really appreciate, as an Amazon seller. I don't sell Nike products. I don't particularly care for the shoes and clothing category. But I appreciate what they do on Amazon. They used to sell first party. They didn't like how that went, and they decided they wanted to go much more direct to consumer, and they focused on retail stores and pulled everything from Amazon. And they were like, we don't want to close off the brand. We're going to go ahead and let third-party sellers sell. But every now and again, they come through and they try to sweep out the counterfeit sellers. That also tends to sweep up a couple of good sellers, at least for a short period of time, until they show that they've got, good receipts, good invoices. But they're happy for resellers to sell their product on the Amazon platform as long as it's done properly. I appreciate them. I wish more brands had that kind of thought process.
Do you have to pay royalties to Nike for as much as you use the Air Monarch in your classes?
You would think. Right. I do make sure that Phil, gets a shoe dog shout out every OA challenge.
Right.
So Perry brings up something really interesting here. Something that we're seeing more and more and more, especially for arbitrage sellers, seeing low inventory fees on less than 1% of total ASINs so far. You and I talked about this a ton. We didn't think it was going to be such a big deal for arbitrage sellers. I even went out and said that I would eat crow if it was complete. I was completely wrong and off base, and it seems like we're being vindicated a bit here as we're learning more and more about these fees. So, I'm not one to say I told you so, but
you kind of just did. The crow's going in the garbage disposal.
Lillis, are you going to open up the wholesale challenge from your group, or do we have to sign up through Corey directly? No, we will. The next wholesale challenge is not going to be until July. And so sometime in July, we'll start letting people know when that's open again. GSD, before Amazon does these things, it would be nice if seller support was trained. Then we could get answers instead of the canned nonsense emails being sent out. I completely agree. But this this is not just an Amazon problem, in my opinion. Have you ever dealt with someone at your bank? Have you ever dealt with someone at, a retail store, customer service person? I mean, just about anywhere you go, the people who are kind of on the front lines answering questions, I'm not going to say they're idiots, but, they're definitely not trained up properly.
Yeah, they're victims of outsourcing. So,
Yes.
think of your VA. If Amazon called one of your VAs and they had to answer questions on your behalf, how would that go?
I have an item that hasn't even been at Amazon for 30 days yet that is showing they're applying the low inventory fee. I thought we'd get at least 30 days to see what sell-through is like. So those fees are going to be credited back to you for the month of April, okay? But they're showing what they are for just so you can learn, all right? However, the low-level inventory fees are on ASINs where the amount of inventory for the ASIN is lower than 28 days. And if it's between like 14 and 28 days, it's going to be one fee. If it's lower than 14 days, it's going to be another fee. I can't keep that straight in my head, so you have to go look at it. So chances are that's probably an ASIN where there's just not enough inventory across it, and it's going to get charged. And it's not just going to be you. It's going to be anybody who makes a sale on that ASIN. Okay? So you're not being targeted yourself. And Mason, is 2D workflow dead? Have been using Inventory Lab to do shipments. On the last show, did the owners give the buyers access to everything, like what to sell the item at, etc., and shipping? Well, I'm not 100% sure what the second part of your question means, so I apologize about that. But is 2D workflow dead? No, Larry still sells 2D workflow. However, I don't think it's a good idea to use the optimization feature if that still exists. I've never used 2D workflow. I haven't signed up for it, anything like that. You're probably not going to want to use the optimization feature because people have gotten emails about that. Then it looks like they might be charging some defect fees and things like that. So I probably would stay away from that part. Could you make orders or could you make shipments in it? Yeah, absolutely. Or you can use the Inventory Lab, whichever one you want. And finally, when will you guys be doing another repricer challenge? Repricer challenge is free and just whenever you want to go take it. You just go to repricerchallenge.com and it's just a video course that we put together. So couple more pieces of new. Oh, good. See, I didn't even know this. So Shannon says that they took the optimization feature down. That's great. I'm glad that happened. So there was no disrespect there. I just don't want people to use it. Couple more pieces of news here, and then we'll sign off for the day unless you guys have any other questions. The Postal Service is increasing fees again. Like they do every single year. Another one of those businesses that increases fees every year. The nice thing is that your grandmother is probably going to be the only person paying this fee, and it's probably not going to be paid by you. It's going up on the first class stamp, so from 68 cents to 73 cents. Of course, if you buy the forever stamps, they'll still work. So if you want to go load up on those, you can do that at 68 cents until July. And they're also raising prices on things like postcards and international postcards, domestic postcards, and other metered letters. I'm not sure that other than tax day and Christmas cards, I don't think that I ever use a stamp throughout the year.
Yeah. Did you cite the source of this information? That it was an old guy walking in the mall that gave you this, or was because that seems to be the only people that know how much a stamp costs these days.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, he stopped me, which was surprising because he was
Stamps are going up again.
he was in a rhythm in his mall walking. Uh, but yeah, I went to the grocery store to buy stamps not too long ago. Actually, I think it was for Christmas cards, and I said, "Hey, could I get like 8 books of stamps?" And she was like, "Seriously?" She's like, "I don't even know if I have that many." I was like, "In your register or in the whole store?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know." It was great. So, all right, we'll hang out for another minute or two. Chris, any other news or opinions you've got for this week before we wrap things up?
You know what? I would like your take. Because when I was talking to Miles yesterday, he asked a question that I've never received before.
Hmm.
So he said, what advice would you give to a part-time Amazon seller that wanted to go full-time? Like what would the keys to focus on? And I don't remember what I said. I was partially blacking out because I was, just on the fly, just I don't know, lack of oxygen or something like that. I know what
Hmm.
I should have said. I thought about that afterwards, and but I was interested on your take. It's a question we don't get too often. I don't see around in our circles.
Yeah. Someone who's part time and wants to go full time, what should they focus on? I mean, that
Yeah,
is a good question. Well, I
yeah.
I think number one is you. A lot of people treat it like a side hustle. And there
Mhm.
is a difference between a business and a side hustle. We've got to make sure that it's being treated like a business. And the biggest thing, of course, is going to be knowing your numbers. I think that heck, I'm guilty of this. When I went full time, I did not properly know my numbers, and it was a stark realization. Uh, the next tax year. Uh, we ate, but it was lean. So one, I would focus on really knowing your numbers so that you know what to focus on. Um, Man, I'm not sure what else. I'm gonna have to really think about that because that's a really, really good question. What did you
Mm.
think about after the show was over?
I do believe I said know your numbers. That's good advice for so many different questions. Because it's such an important thing, and it's deceptive. I guarantee if however many people are listening to this, if we took a poll and the people that said yes, I know what my numbers are, if if a CPA looked it over, it's the numbers actually going to be less, because there are people that think they know the numbers, but they don't. No, I think, like, I thought of it as kind of like a chessboard,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really have to know how to play chess, but you know that each position has its own movement structure, right? If you were looking at the chessboard as your Amazon business, I would say uh, sourcing and sales and your orange bars would be the king and the queen. So my
Mm-hmm.
advice would be to take the king and the queen off the board and put them in your pocket, put them away, and then concentrate on what's left. Because it's the pawns, it's all the other pieces that are going to eventually they'll get you to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, the orange bars and sourcing, and I'm not saying they're not important, but if you're thinking about going full time, chances are you can do some damage sourcing, right? And that's where the money's made. And if you're part time, you also have the advantage of the fact that once you quit your day job, leave the rat race, you've now increased the amount of time that you have,
Mm-hmm.
because doing it part time is such an advantage, in my opinion, for people that go full time,
Yeah,
because you only
I
have
would
these
agree.
little pockets of time, and you're getting so much done in a short period of time. So then once you finally go full time, if you have the discipline to do it, instead of just stretching what you did in 2 to 3 hours over an 8 hour day, that's not going to get you anywhere. But, if you use the extra time that you have now, you could really make a killing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it's the other pieces, it's probably like admin if you had to lump it all together.
Okay.
It's making sure, think about how much more volume you're going to do. Think about all the admin tasks, and then think about how much more you're going to have to do. Like what's your current state of bookkeeping? What are you doing with your returns? Returns are a slow leak that could, over time, if you're not paying attention and getting some sort of capital back and not letting that death pile get out of control, it could hurt you over a long enough
absolutely.
timeline. So it's all that admin stuff, just all the other stuff at scale.
Yeah, I would agree. And one of those pawns that I think too few people don't pay enough attention to is account health. If you go part-time and I don't know, you're selling 20, 30, $40,000 a month, maybe you deal with an IP complaint once every 6 months, maybe you get an inauthentic complaint every couple of months, but you go full-time, you're going to scale this thing, or you're going to try to scale it to the moon very, very quickly. And well, how many more of those complaints and things are you going to deal with? I think too many people ignore them until that small thorn in the side becomes an open wound and they get themselves suspended and things like that. Yeah, I think right after, I don't know, what's the third most powerful piece on a chessboard? I'm not a chess player. I could never wrap my mind around it for some reason.
I would probably the knight.
Okay. Yeah, so if sourcing is your king and queen, yeah, your account health has got to be your knight at the very least. And so I think making sure you have a good system to handle that would be the next most important thing.
Yeah, but it was an interesting question. I liked it.
That is a good question. I like it. And Luke says he thinks of health insurance. That stuff is costly without employer sponsored. It is expensive. Yeah, you need to get yourself someone who's got those benefits you can take advantage of. Good. Sorry, Jerry popped in here. Said it was painful, but he removed all 29 generic listings from his account today. I'm glad you did. That'll keep you a little bit safer. So,
Yeah,
all
there's
right,
nothing
guys.
more. There's nothing more disappointing than have you run into this where you find a product, and it's like low sellers, good money, and then you go and you just check Seller Central and you try to add the product and that pop-up hits and says you are attempting to contribute to an ASIN, a generic ASIN that you haven't in the
Yeah.
That's just, it leaves me empty inside.
Right. I know, especially when they're big money makers.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, that's it for this week. We went a little over the planned 40 minutes as is our MO. But we'll be back next Wednesday to do this again with you guys, answer questions, go over some news, share some opinions with you guys, and we look forward to seeing you back here next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Until then, take it easy, everybody.